My name is Yvette Benavidez Garcia, and I'm the daughter, one of the children of Master Sergeant Roy P. Benavidez, and I am a dyslexia interventionist for El Campo ISD. So, as you're aware, my father was in high demand for speaking engagements because of the fact that he was a Medal of Honor recipient. So, my dad wasn't home too often during Veterans Day, Memorial Days, and Hispanic Awareness Month, or just any of those other major significant holidays and days. So, because he wasn't home during those days, meant that we weren't with him. However, we always honored Veterans Day by flying the American flag at our home, and it was always proudly displayed.
What is your Veterans Day tradition now without your father?
Now that he's gone, I always get asked by my students at school if I can like show a video about him. So I always try to have a video available. I am the administrator for my dad's social media site, so I like to post things on his Facebook, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. I like to post things about him on that day. Or any other day, mind you, just to remember him and to remember his brothers in arms, and not to just not to diminish anybody on any other day, but we like to remember our heroes on those days in particular. So I'll post maybe a significant video that my dad spoke in or about his brothers in arms. I'll post a video. I'll share things that maybe somebody has shared with me about my dad. My dad did a lot of speaking engagements. So right now I'm focusing on extracting little tidbits of what he said from those speaking engagements and just showing those on his site so that people can be encouraged by what he did and what he said.
Has your father ever been invited by any Native American groups, or were you aware that you were Native American?
I was aware that I came from a lineage of the Yaqui Indian, a Native American tribe. My father always spoke about that, and he was very proud of that. But to my understanding, I don't believe he was ever invited. He may have, but I was not aware of it. A lot of the things that my dad did when he went on speaking engagements or tours, I was younger, so I wasn't aware of. I knew that he was gone, but I didn't know like what groups were inviting him. But my dad, I knew that my biological grandmother, my dad's mom, was a Yaqui Native American, and so I grew up always knowing that, but I didn't know much about the tribe. And it wasn't until later in life that I started to do just a little bit of research about it and try to engage all that I could with what they stood for, what they were about, whether or not I could get proof, because I know as any tribe is, they're very proud of their lineage. And so I didn't want to, dishonor them at all by speaking about the tribe and not knowing about them. So I did try to seek out and get information, but I have been very unsuccessful in doing so. So although my dad said that my grandmother was Yaqui Indian, I never could get proof, I guess, from the tribe saying that she was.
The Yaqui Indian, the tribe, I think the way they say their name or identify themselves is Yaqui. I think that's how they say it. Yaqui.
Yaqui.
Yeah, Yaqui. There's a H.
Oh, wow.
Oh, instead of the Y, they use
Right.
a H. Yaqui. Back in the 1600s, they were like the original border patrol because of the river along the Rio Grande River. I did some research on it because there was an episode in La Bamba. I don't know if you ever remember that movie, La Bamba, when it came out with Lou Diamond Phillips. There was a scene where he was playing in the garage, and the lead band wasn't giving him the opportunity to play or sing, and the mom gets mad and says, "Oh yeah, my great grandmother was the Yaqui, 100% Yaqui Indian. They don't know who they're messing with, right?" It's a great scene right
Oh, that's
there.
neat. I never knew that. I mean, I saw the movie when I was younger, but that obviously didn't stand out to me. So I'm glad that you said that.
Yaqui Indian, they were a very large group of tribe there in southern New Mexico and southern Arizona. They broke up into bands after battling the Spaniards because they kept the Spaniards down south. But they allowed the Jesuits Catholicism in, and they stayed around and moved further north into New Mexico and some part of Arizona and California. So that's why a lot of those places have Spanish names, the mountains and locations and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So they were the original that fighters against Europeans that were coming in. They were just flowing in. But later, after that, the tribe separated into four groups, I think. Some in California, some in southern Arizona, where the original tribe is now, the base tribe, and then some in New Mexico. And here, right where in that area you were at, now called, what is it called? The Gulf of America, all the way down to Rio Grande River. So they were there. Your father, did he ever ran into problems about his background where he was when he was growing up before the military? Did he ever talk about that?
Well, yes. I mean, there was a lot of racism and hatred and negativity going on during that when he was growing up, and he faced a lot of that growing up, and I think that's what kind of fueled him to be the person that he ultimately became, because people looked at the color of his skin and wouldn't let him enter restaurants or movie theaters or schools or places like that, and so that always was in the back of his head, why people would look at the color of one's skin and call him names and call him stupid, and things like that. He always had to work out in the fields picking cotton and things like that. So he from a young age he had a strong work ethic, and he had a strong he appreciated where he came from and where his people came from, his parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, and so he always had to deal with that. And then going into the military at a young age, he always, I think he had to deal with discrimination as well. But my father is the type of person who doesn't let that bring him down or bother him so much. And perhaps, you mentioned the Catholicism, and my dad came from a very Catholic upbringing, and it kind of meshes. It has a very good melding with the Yaqui Indian tribe. They too, like you said, were very strong in Catholicism, and a lot of the things that my dad did in life, and I guess we'll get into that later, maybe certain traditions or the certain foods that he ate, and even the way I feel today as a descendant of my father, we can probably trace back to as something that came from our ancestors, from the Yaqui. But yeah, my dad did have to deal with a lot of hatred, bigotry, racism, a lot of ugliness that went on in his life.
Your father was a very eloquent speaker. Where did he find all them words to, in his speeches? Like, was he a reader? Did he always read and learn about history?
Yeah, my dad was self-taught because sadly because of the time frame that he was living in, he had to drop out of school. And it's documented about maybe the eighth grade, he had to drop out of school. And being in education, as I am myself, I can't imagine a person like my dad getting as far as he did, and surviving, with what he did afterwards, with the little education that he got. But my dad was self taught. He did like to read. He was always reading. If it wasn't self help books, it was nonfiction. He did read a lot of nonfiction, but even like John Grisham novels, that was one of his favorite authors, and he had a lot of John Grisham books. But my dad was always reading and always writing. And so he made sure that when people wrote to him, fan mail, that he wrote every single person back, that he was really strong in connecting with people. And so he had a lot of letters from people from all around the world. But at night, my dad, you could see him sitting in our kitchen. We had a bar area with 3 bar stools, and he was always at the end of the bar stool, and he was always reading or writing. He ended up learning about 14 different languages, and he wasn't very fluent in them, but he knew enough that if he was in that country, he could get by. He could speak to people. So he taught himself how to speak many different languages, and he was an eloquent speaker, like you said. And he was just blessed beyond what anybody could imagine. And I'd have to say that I'm sure that he prayed a lot before he went up and spoke to people like I do today, and probably asked for the gift of proclamation. And that's one thing he was gifted in speaking and teaching people and inspiring people.
Let's talk about your father's parents. Did they ever carry on traditions to him and then carried it on to you, your father?
I don't know my grandmother, Teresa Perez was her name, Benavidez. I don't know her, and my father didn't really know her that well either, because she passed away before he was 10 years old, and he did not get to spend a lot of time with her. She was very young when she had him, and then died of tuberculosis. So my dad grew up an orphan, and he was adopted by an uncle and an aunt who lived in El Campo. My dad was raised in Lenondale, near Cuero, Texas. So I can't say what traditions or anything were passed on from her to him, because I didn't know her and he didn't know her that well either. But when it comes to food, certain foods, we grew up with the traditional, Mexican American cultural dishes: tamales, caldos, tortillas, refried beans, pozole. My mom didn't make it, but I remember eating it at church, along with menudo. Foods in that aspect, I think they may have been brought down from the Native American culture. But there are certain things that myself, I'm aware of, and I grew up, for example, medicinal things. I personally grew up, when I got sick, did not like to take medicine, and I never understood or knew why. I just knew that was a part of me, like, this is what I believe in. I don't know why I don't like to take medicine if I have a stomach ache or if I have a headache. And many people would say, oh, why don't you just go to the doctor? Or why don't you just take a Tylenol or ibuprofen or whatever? But I never liked to do it. And in the little research that I have done, they were very big on medicinal purposes for healing. And I thought, well, maybe that was something that was passed on by my ancestors, quietly passed on as a traditional. I like to use mint as a form of soothing my stomach, and I'm passing that on to my children. Never understood or knew why, just that I was very into herbs, and I do have an herb garden now, and I'm very strong with that. And I like to think that it comes from my heritage, from the lineage that was silently passed on through me by my grandmother.
So you've never been around any Native American activities at all? No powwows?
None.
Your father or yourself never been invited to any of the activities at all?
None. Not at all. Again, if my dad was or had been, I was unaware, but yeah, no, personally, I've not.
Would you be willing to go to a powwow or some type of Native American activities if they invited you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially, of the Yaqui Indian tribe, because that's, I believe, is the lineage that I come from. But yes, I'm very open to think culturally. I like to become culturally aware of any kind of culture that's out there. We learn from that.
A few years ago, they used to do powwows activities in Seguin, not far from where you live.
Right.
They used to do that. I don't know if they continually do that. A lot of the veterans go down to Seguin and do be a part of that powwow. and a lot of the veterans, majority of the veterans, are coming out of a small town. I do not remember the name of that. For the Yaqui tribe, you didn't get really much feedback trying to find information or how to register at all.
No, that was back in August of 2020 was when, of course, we were going through a pandemic and I was at home. So I thought, this might be a good time for me to reach out and try to see what I can find. Again, my dad, although he was proud of his Yaqui heritage, he didn't speak much about it, and perhaps that's because maybe he didn't know much about it. I mean, the little that I knew was that during warfare, the tribe they were fierce, and I remember him saying that they were the fiercest of all, and that they would scalp the enemy as a form of victory. And so I knew that about them, and I thought, well, maybe that's why you're considered so fierce yourself, because of the lineage that you come from. I know that my dad is very stoic and honorable and things like that. And I thought, well, that surely has to come from the Yaqui, It has to, because they too were fierce. I don't know. What was your question again? I may have I don't know if I answered your question.
I think what I was asking was if you've ever been invited and the Yaqui tribe, what the last thing you try to do was
Oh, yes.
you never got a feedback from them.
Right. So during the pandemic, I thought, well, this would be a good time for me to reach out. And I did try to reach out to the Yaqui, their headquarters in Arizona. And I think I got on their website, and whoever the president was at the time of the council, I think I emailed them. I got like all the board members, and it was maybe about 8 or 10, and I emailed them all, and I got a response saying contact this person. And so then I contacted that person, and I left my phone number, and I explained my situation, and I was trying to be as respectful as I could, because I don't know much about any of the tribes out there, and I don't know if, I'm sure they get a lot of people saying, oh, I come from the lineage, and what can I do to be a member? And it's not that I was trying to do that at all, or try to take away from anything that they've preserved, on their website. I just wanted to know, this is what I've grown up knowing, that my grandmother was a Yaqui, and I want to know, how can I find out if it's true? And because I don't want to keep talking about it if it's not true,
Right.
because I understand that there are people who are from that lineage tribe, and I don't want to put something out there if it wasn't 100% true. And so I was just trying to find out, but I have yet to hear from them. It's been obviously 5 years. I think I reached back a year later or 8 months later, and I think in my email said, hey, it's been 8 months and I still haven't heard anything. I'm just trying to find answers. Can somebody help me? Is there a book that contains the people from the tribe? I just want help.
Right.
No. And sadly, no, I never got it. And that's okay. I mean, I'll keep trying. I'm sure this interview with you might spark me to get interested again. Maybe there's new people on the board who can help me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody will hear this and be a part of the council, and maybe help me. But in the end, I just want to know, how much truth is it to what I've always believed and what my father always believed.
Maybe the veterans group in the Yaqui tribe in Arizona will help you push a lot of these things through once they hear of this.
Right.
And usually the veteran groups have more knowledge, and they're pretty good barracks lawyers out there. My next question is about your future, on how you're going to carry these traditions to your children, if you do, if the Yaqui tribe does help you.
Right. Oh, well, I'm really big on tradition, and my father and my mom, I think they instilled that in all of us. There are certain traditions that we do at the house which may not be related to the Yaqui, but we still try to carry on things from our Catholic culture and from our Mexican American culture. But if I find out of any other traditions that I do that are related, obviously I'll pass them on. I'm always, trying to carry on any kind of traditions with my family, and I'll continue to do so, even if I find out that we are indeed a part of the Yaqui or we're not. One of the things like I have now is an altar in my home, a makeshift altar where I light candles and I pray for my parents who are just my children's deceased ancestors. Our church does that as well. But just the little traditions like that, both of my kids are very big on not taking medicine as well and using herbs for medicinal purposes. So I'll obviously continue to carry that on. The foods that we eat, we love our nature, and we like to preserve it. I know a part of that is not being wasteful. So, we continue to carry on that tradition. I think that's also something that the Yaqui Indians take homage and pride in as well, is nature and not being wasteful. So little things like that.
I know that if you are invited to a powwow, powwows always honor their veterans, and they are always the first one to come in and a grand entry. It gives you goosebumps.
Yeah, that's neat.
That's how proud they are. So the Cheyenne is one of the neighboring tribes here to Texas, and they're very helpful, and they're right up near in Oklahoma City. We do also have some wide variety of tribes here, different in Dallas Fort Worth area. If they invited you, yes, you'll probably be an honored guest, and
That would
you'll
be
get a lot of praises.
that would be great.
So how did they contact you?
Well, like I said, I have a Facebook group that I administer for my dad. It's Roy P. Benavidez, Tango Mike Mike. My email is Yvette, Yvette, B as in Benavidez, Garcia, Garcia, at gmail.com. They can find me if they Google search my dad. There's probably a clickable link to contact me. So I don't think it'd be too difficult for them to contact me, but I would be ready, willing, and able and available to go and to a powwow. I think that'd be amazing. That'd be great.
Do you have anything to add or anything I miss would like to say to the Native American community?
The fact that they honor their veterans, that's amazing, and that's so great, because I know a lot of our veterans obviously are very big on traditions as well, and they're very proudful people, are the men and women. So I appreciate the fact that they honor our veterans any way that they can. So I really like to thank them for that. We're a huge military family, as I mean, that's kind of obvious, with my dad being the person that he is. But whenever I hear that other groups are honoring our veterans, that just brings a sense of pride to my heart. So I want to thank them.